Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to It's Rainmaking Time. This is Kim Greenhouse. It gives me great pleasure to welcome Robert Cohen. He is the author of the book Milk A to Z and Milk the Deadly Poison. He's also written other books on milk. He is the founder and owner of the website notmilk.com. And I cannot imagine what he's going to tell us today about not milk. I've read his books. They're very alarming. It's definitely a wake-up call. Many people have been talking about how when you drink milk, it creates more mucus and you get more allergies and there's just more problems in the body. Now it's homogenized and pasteurized, which changes the molecular structure of what it is. But there's things we need to know about milk that only someone like Robert Cohen can tell us. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome Robert Cohen to It's Rainmaking Time. Good morning.
Good morning. It's nice to be here. But before we get into not milk, I got to compliment you on something. You have no clue what I'm about to say.
Okay.
The funniest line, I think, in the history of television came from a show, Welcome Back, Kotter, where one of the crazy characters was Arnold Horshack, and he was asked what his last name means, and it was just so in character. He explained, it means the cattle are dying. And if you just imagine being given that name, your name, Greenhouse, happens to be one of the best names I have ever heard in my life. It is so fitting. It is so appropriate for you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that, Robert. There's a couple of things I want to state just in terms of my own limited position and understanding. And I would imagine that the public's is equal to that. Firstly, we know that by pasteurization and homogenization, it changes the molecular structure of what this substance is. So it's not really the milk that's coming out of cows.
Oh, absolutely not. It's very different.
And therefore, we're not even drinking the same structure of thing we're talking about. And the beneficial aspects of what could be in milk are not there. And so we're not really buying milk, even though we think we are.
Oh, you're absolutely right, Kim. As a matter of fact, I want you to close your eyes and I want you to picture an organic peanut butter and a freshly baked bread and putting a peanut butter and jelly sandwich together. And what's the perfect drink with it? A tall glass of mother's milk. Would you drink that?
No.
The healthiest cow in America, living in your backyard, mowing your lawn, living in a little barn, you massage it every day. The milk from her is not appropriate from your body, so forget pasteurization and homogenization for a moment. If you want to eat lots of powerful steroid and protein hormones, then by all means drink the milk from the cow living in your backyard.
What about cows that are not given steroids and hormones, like cows on small farms with families living there, and they may have 3 or 4 cows? What about that?
Are nursing mothers given steroids and hormones? Of course not. But her milk from mom naturally contains powerful hormones. And before mom gives birth to a baby, the milk is instructing her mammary tissue to grow because it's got estrogen and progesterone and prolactin and melatonin and oxytocin. It's got powerful steroid hormones instructing these mammary tissues to get big. Look what's happened to our little girls in America in the last 20 years. How zaftig, how large-breasted they've become. You don't want to be drinking cow's milk from a healthy cow. It's not the hormones they give cows. They don't give cows hormones except for injecting it into their rump to make more milk. Cows naturally have powerful hormones in their milk. Lactoferrins, immunoglobulins, which, by the way, take a baby cow and have it gain 500 pounds in 3 months. That's what milk is all about.
You've been called the Antichrist of the dairy industry.
Yeah, I'm bad news for these wonderful dairy farmers, and I love them. They're the hardest workers in America. They bring the work ethic that made America strong. So they're 7 days, 24/7, basically, on the farm. They're good people, but little did they know that the 4th generation, they're going to take all of the pressure because your milk is loaded with powerful growth hormones, proteins that cause allergies, antibiotics, pesticides, fat, cholesterol, and dioxin. Which one of those things do you want in your body, Kim?
Well, let's talk about the pesticides. Are you saying that there's pesticides in it because of the grass that the animal's eating?
Not only the grass. Go into any dairy barn, you're going to see lots of flies, and they cut off the cow's tail so she can't even swat those flies in the worst region of her body. Well, they put iconocloprid on it, made by Bayer. And iconocloprid is the chemical that's been kind of suggested to causing beehive disorder. But you're eating something that has lots of herbicides and pesticides. If you go to the Food and Drug Administration, they have a book called the Green Book, which lists every allowable chemical to be put on crops. And the crops fed to dairy cows are allowed to have 50 times more of these dangerous chemicals than we eat. So it all concentrates in their bodies, and you're getting it when you drink their milk.
So there's really no milk, even if it's not pasteurized and not homogenized. There's really no milk.
I suggested you drink, if you really want that glass of milk, drink human breast milk. Drink dog milk, because dogs are certainly man's best friend, and that's got to be delicious. Instinctively, you know not to drink these things because there are substances in there that are not appropriate for your adult body. You're not a cow, and you're not a puppy, and you're not a kitten, and you're not a little piglet. You're not supposed to be drinking milk from these species with these powerful hormones.
But what happened to the old days, Robert, where farmers and people were living off water and the cow's milk? What about butter?
Well, butter, it takes 21.2 pounds of milk to make a pound of butter. When the Pilgrims came to America, a dairy cow only yielded 1 quart of milk a day, enough to churn into a half a stick of butter every day. They needed the fat to survive. As a matter of fact, 400 years ago, when these Pilgrims came to America, the first winter, 15 of the 18 mothers died. Half the men died. All the kids died. That's why they needed the Thanksgiving. 3 years later, a ship called the Charity brought the first dairy cow to America. They needed the fat from the butter to survive. And the Native Americans, the Wampanoags, the Abenaki, they found out that there was an additional surprise in milk: bovine leukemia, bovine immune deficiency virus, hepatitis, Yersinia, which also was called the bubonic plague. And it wasn't cowboys shooting the Indians. It was disease that got them.
Talk a little bit about dioxins. We know on some level that it's bad, but in your book, it's really bad. Talk about it.
Well, it's really bad. It's called, just about every major magazine and news show has done at least one episode on dioxins, calling it the most toxic chemical mankind has ever produced. And it's a cancer causer. And somebody tested Ben & Jerry's vanilla ice cream recently and found that it contains 300 times the safe level of dioxins. Ben & Jerry were real happy because they said, we're using dioxin-free carton to put our ice cream. Well, for heaven's sake, eat the carton then. But it's loaded with dioxins, and these are toxic chemicals, and we pay the price. You get to a certain age, and an average American spends 20 years dying. Sure, we live a long time, but we spend 20 years heart disease, cancer, before we die. Find a country where they spend 1 week before they die. That's what you want to do, is eat their diet.
What kind of a diet do you live on?
Lately, the last 2 weeks, you got to promise not to laugh. Bananas.
Really?
Yeah, that's for the last 2 weeks I've been living on bananas. There's a trainer that I have in Europe, and we communicate by email. His name is Dr. Douglas Graham. He has a website called foodandsport.com. And he's taken some interesting people, and the first 2 weeks that he works with them, they only eat bananas. And the interesting people include Carl Lewis, who is probably the greatest track and field athlete in the history of the world, Martina Navratilova, probably the greatest female tennis player, and lots of athletes, including triathletes, are eating bananas. I mixed it up a little bit before. I made a banana smoothie instead of just eating plain bananas, so I have lots of variety in my life. But it's the perfect food. We've been looking for the holy grail, for the golden fleece, for the perfect food. It's the banana, loaded with protein, fat, carbohydrates, got everything you need.
You're a triathlon runner, aren't you? You're a triathlon participant.
Well, let me tell you a secret, and please don't hold this against me. A year ago, I weighed over 300 pounds. And January 1st, I made a New Year's resolution. I was going to get into the gym and lose 100 pounds, which I did. And so far, it's 120 pounds.
Wow.
And I was going to do a triathlon. I signed up for a triathlon in Sag Harbor, New York, paid my $245 fee, and then I worked to do the triathlon. So, yeah, I've done 2. I'm going to do the New York City Triathlon next year. I got in. I'm very thrilled about that. I'm also going to do what's called a 70.3, which is the total number of mileage for a half Ironman next year. So I'm getting my body into great shape. I have a new goal. And my new goal is that I want to finish in my age group when I'm 105.
I love it.